Hello viewers and welcome back to the Jctr Corner, which is a program that is brought to you by the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection in collaboration with Loyola TV. Join me as we discuss yet another very interesting topic on the Africa Peer Review Mechanism. To help me discuss this very important topic in the studio today, I have Mr. Joseph Lungu, a Programs Officer from the Faith and Justice Department. To present to you the program, my name is Natasha Namalambo Muhila. Mr. Lungu, how are you and welcome to the show?
I'm fine and thank you very much.
Okay, how is Jctr today?
We are doing fine and we are blessed.
Okay, so the Africa Peer Review Mechanism is like a mutually agreed instrument where self-monitoring of African states takes place. So I would like you to explain to me what exactly is the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, who formed it, and
Well, the Africa Peer Review Mechanism is a brainchild of the NEPAD, but to understand how Africa Peer Review Mechanism came about, we have to move a little bit behind in history.
Okay.
The predecessor to the African Union, which is the Organization of African Union, had a culture of non-interference in domestic issues of member states. As a result, this allowed for the development of regimes and failed states that failed to deliver, while they delivered political independence to Africa, failed to deliver sustainable development. The AU, the African Union, has moved from the culture of non-interference to a culture of non-indifference, meaning that they would rather take a proactive approach to preempting problems before they get worse within the member state.
Okay.
However, the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, it's not mandatory, it's voluntary.
Among African states?
Among African states, each member state has to apply to be part, to accede to the mechanism.
Okay.
Yes. And the mechanism carries 4 major kinds of review, which are the baseline, which is done when a member is admitted, and we have the periodical review, which comes every 4 years.
Okay.
And then there is the requested review, which a member state can request to have it done even before the 4 years has elapsed. And then there's the preeminent review, which the AU itself, if it senses a member state is on the verge of a political or economic crisis, they can now intervene and go and do a review. Unlike with the Organization of African Unity, where the charter specifically stated that there should be no interference in domestic issues of a member state.
Okay, so it's quite interesting to see that we actually have a mother body that is able to govern or actually review the various political issues that are taking place. So after how long do they have to review African countries?
Well, the periodic review, it's every 4 years.
Okay.
Yes.
And has Zambia been reviewed of late?
Zambia accepted to the APRM under the presidency of President Mwanawasa.
Okay.
And it took a little bit longer for Zambia to be reviewed because of unforeseen circumstances, one of them being the demise of the President Mwanawasa, and then resources. But right now, we have the Ministry of Justice, which is the Secretariat for the APRM. So it is responsible for all issues relating to Africa Peer Review Mechanism in Zambia.
Okay, so the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, how beneficial is it to Zambia?
Well, at the moment, within the African context, the APRM, it's the only system that is there that can do the monitoring. But this does not mean that Zambia as a state cannot put other mechanism alongside this, I would say it is beneficial in the sense that at least we have a system independent of the politicians with vested interest that can do a review of the nation. However, it is still in its infancy, probably teenage stage, because it hasn't clocked yet 20 years since its inception. We hope down the line it will become eventually completely divorced from the political entities that comprise the African Union. The APRM is done by eminent persons. So at least that's a step forward. A
step into progress.
Into progress, because we now have people, not simply politicians, evaluating and reviewing the progress of Africa.
Okay, so following the APRM reviews, would you say they use sustainable mechanisms?
Well, they are competent enough, and looking at the report on Zambia for the previous review, I think it is candid, frank, and honest. It has made bold recommendations, which it is hoped Zambia has got the political will to action on them.
Okay, so would you run us through some of these bold recommendations?
One of the outstanding feature with the Zambian political scenario, this is not only exclusive to Zambia, but it's also a problem that touches a good number of African states, especially those which are former British colonies, which use what are called the Westminster constitutions. Much as we underline the independence of the organ of the states, the practical reality is that they are not independent. The simple reason is that within the Zambian system, we have got a very powerful executive. Why I'm saying so, and why the same APRM underlined this, is that the entire cabinet, which is the executive of Zambia, is also part of the legislature. The cabinet in Zambia is formed from members of parliament. Then the executive also appoints the judiciary. So you can see that the executive has got a foot in the judiciary and a foot in the legislature. Practically, no matter how much you underline the independence, the two will always be subjugated to the executive. And this has gotten in the way of making systems function, because even government agencies themselves become more or less like appendages of the executive. Yes.
That is very good. But I'm wondering if Zambia has been part of the APRM for almost 20 years.
No, not 20 years. Zambia, the APRM itself has been in force for almost 18 years. Zambia is only, not almost probably 9 years, because the anticipated review for this year, it's the second one. Yes.
So I'm assuming there's assessment of the good governance levels that are taking place within Zambia. And I would like to understand, why is it that we're still facing a lot of issues in this sector? Because when we look at the Zambian situation right now, corruption has become a norm of the day.
Yes. Zambia was reviewed on 6 areas, which are adherence, domestication, and implementation of international standards and codes. On this, Zambia is complying, although it has got a handicap when it comes to resources, both financial and human, in making sure that these are activated. Then on adoption of implementation of macroeconomic policies, Zambia again seems to be on a correct path. But Zambia has been found wanting on the pursuit of sound and transparent, predictable economic practices. We don't know. Citizens are simply surprised or ambushed with projects or plans. Then also Zambia has failed in effectively having a transparent and accountable financial management system.
Okay.
That is underlined in the report. And worst of all, the fight against corruption.
Okay.
Zambia has taken a lukewarm attitude towards the fight against corruption. It is not worse, but the indication of Zambia being on the position of 113th out of 108 countries is a serious issue that needs immediate attention.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lungu, for being able to explain to us on how Zambia is not doing so well in relation to corruption. But then I'm here looking at this very ugly vice because it's impacted so negatively on the citizens of Zambia, especially the most marginalized sections. You know, in a community where corruption becomes a norm, it is very, very sad because they even lose confidence in the governance systems that exist. So before we go further in talking about the Africa peer review mechanism, this is the Jctr corner, and today I'm joined by Mr. Lungu, and we'll now go on a short break. See you soon.
To advertise on this program and enjoy amazing introductory rates, please call us on +260 211 290959 or +260 211 290912 or +260 953 538 000. Or send us an email at loyolazam@gmail.com.
Hello viewers, and welcome back to the Jctr corner. Today we are looking at the Africa peer review mechanism, and to help me discuss this very important topic is Mr. Joseph Lungu. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so before we went on a short break, we were actually looking at the levels of corruption in relation to the Africa peer review mechanism. But then now, since Zambia is subject for review in the year 2020, am I right?
Yes.
I would just like to find out, how do Zambians get to participate in the APRM?
The sad part of it is that the APRM hasn't been given a lot of publicity.
Okay.
Apart from, let's say, NGOs and the CSOs, and the intellectual bodies, very few is known, very little is known among the public of what this system is all about.
Okay.
So what I would say is, as the Zambia is due for review, there is need for publicity. First of all, letting the people understand what APRM is all about, and that it is their right and duty to make submissions.
Okay.
Yes, it is not enough that CSOs speak on behalf of the masses.
Okay.
The people themselves need to make submissions to the thematic issues that the APRM looks on.
Okay. Okay, so having said that, as Jctr, what exactly are you doing this year in relation to the APRM?
Well, for the previous review, Jctr, alongside the good number of CSOs, made submissions, and they also worked with the public in trying to raise awareness of the process. For the simple reason that in order for a report to have credibility, to be effective, and to be accepted as a document that represents the profile of the country, it does not simply to be a product of politicians, but a product of all stakeholders involved in the same. We are hoping that this year, in the same tradition that Jctr has often been invited to make submissions to the National Assembly, we will also have an opportunity of making submissions.
Okay, so Mr. Lungu, as a Zambian youth, who's not affiliated, or rather doesn't have a connection with any NGO or civil society organization, how then could I get involved with the APRM? Who exactly am I supposed to see?
We go back to what I've mentioned before the break of our governance systems, where the executive is dominant, despite people emphasizing the independence of the judiciary and the independence of the legislature. We have a system which is more revolving around the presidents than around the people.
Okay.
So there is a need to make a concerted effort to making the public take it as a culture to hold their duty bearers accountable. This should begin from the civic leaders, right from the grassroots, the ward councillors, the MPs, and various people in public office, which should be made aware that there should be a liaison to the public and the people who are running the systems.
Okay.
As it stands, we made allusion to corruption. Corruption in Zambia at the moment is not seen as a problem, not because Zambians don't have moral values, no, but because it has become so part of a culture such that we divorce it from our individual activities.
It's true.
You see, it's easier to attribute corruption, let's say, to poverty and lower emoluments for public officers.
Okay.
But I think that has now become a cliche. The kind of corruption we are dealing with now, it's a corruption that has got a political face and an economical face. In the sense that the perpetrators are people who already have got economically, they are empowered, and politically they have got authority.
Okay.
So as a result, sometimes acts of corruption may even work within a legal system. And that's how it's even difficult to prove them sometimes. We have created a culture of political patronage, in which the elite control the resources, control the administration. And if you're not affiliated to any of the elite, then you cannot access any system. So it's easier for people now to manipulate the procurement system, the implementation of programs, and the like. And as a result, this blurs the need and the call for transparency. You see? So we don't know, because if a clique of people can give each other contracts, there will be legal contracts, and you can't question them. But if within there's now cartelling and manipulation of budgets and the like, because even development, if you are not with the guy who controls the basket, the national basket, development in your area will not come.
Okay, so Mr. Lungo, having said that, drawing it back to corruption again, I've seen the corruption levels in Zambia are increasing. So from your explanation, I'm drawing that within Zambia, we've set up mechanisms to control corruption, but those mechanisms are weak. But looking at the Africa Peer Review, if they say the corruption levels within Zambia are increasing, what exactly does the APRM do to those countries? Or, like, I would like you to elaborate more there.
The Africa Peer Review mechanism has got no powers over the member states because it's a voluntary thing. But it can make recommendations on how things can be done. For example, one of the issues that comes from the previous report, it's the extractive industry.
Okay.
Yeah. Zambia is highly dependent on foreign capital for big industry.
Okay.
And one of the biggest players in this is the extractive industry. And then on the other hand, Zambia has ratified almost all protocols of the International Labour Organization.
Okay.
Yeah? Now, the problem comes when it comes to implementation, because the people who have got the capital have got a sway over the government, and the government sometimes is very soft on them. As a result, we have seen disregard, for example, of labor laws in Zambia. Okay. Labor rights, they are there domesticated, but they are rarely respected. And most often, the government turns a blind eye to that. Then again, when we deal with the extractive industry, small-scale miners have no framework that directly caters for them.
Okay.
So they labor, the little they get, it's either it's bought by the bigger company. Like, for example, the gemstone industry, it's highly exploited by peasants, the locals. But because there's no mechanism for them to sell the little emerald or gold they remove from the stream, they suffer like that. So in that line again, Zambia has been found wanting in that it doesn't put a good framework that protects the small-scale miners.
Okay, so you have all heard the duty lies in our hands to be taking an active role in all national issues so that we can be able to hold all duty bearers accountable. It is our right to actually be involved in all issues that affect us. Remember, if you are not affected, you are infected. I don't know how they go about it. So anyway, Mr. Lungu, I would like to find out in relation to the APRM, what are the key objectives in the economic governance and management in relation to Zambia?
I mean, basically, Zambia is part to the AU electoral and good governance protocol. That means Zambia has got an obligation to put in place systems that will ensure fair and transparent electoral processes, but also ensure economic activities that benefit all the citizens. You see. Now, in terms of compliance, on paper, on record, Zambia has complied. Zambia has put in place, for example, I've got the Zambia Bureau of Standards. Within the finance system, they've got systems that check the running of financial institutions and the like. Now, the challenge for Zambia is that it is incapacitated. Because of the political patronage, we find that it is political cronies who get in positions of responsibility and not competent professionals. For example, when you look at corruption, as long as the Anti-Corruption Commission remains an agency of the executive, already, you like it or not, it has got a certain political inclination. No matter how much it might claim to be independent, it can still be frustrated in its work. Then the other weakness that the APRM report for the previous review brings out, it's that the Anti-Corruption Commission in Zambia, much as it is independent, can only prosecute cases with the leave of the National Prosecution Authority. So the Director of Public Prosecutions is the one who should give a go-ahead if they have to do a prosecution. So the recommendation is, why not give the ACCC independence of deciding whom to prosecute, how to prosecute, and when to prosecute? That is why most cases of corruption, they will come up, investigation done, but they can be either stopped or the prosecution authority may decide not to prosecute, or even when prosecution has begun, they can decide to enter not prosecute. And on record, we have seen cases where high-profile cases are rarely concluded with a verdict or a judgment.
So thank you so much, Mr. Lungu. Briefly, tell me, what recommendations would you give as a way forward to Zambian authorities?
Well, the fundamental thing that has to be done. The public has to be made aware that Zambia is due for APRM.
Okay.
The timeline should be given and modalities should be put in place for people to take part, not simply through CSOs or NGOs, but even as citizens.
Okay.
Probably even on the grassroots level within the World Development Committees, people can discuss issues and say this is an issue we wish our government to be evaluated on. Then the government should continue this tradition of engaging CSOs and other stakeholders to make recommendation. And 2020 is a very special year in that it's a year we are anticipating to get into 2021, which is a decisive year in which people go to the polls. Now, one observation that has come out, it's the fragmentation of the national unit of Zambia that is caused or probably influenced by, one, the polarization of the media.
Okay.
Now, the polarization of the media is slowly also spilling over into what I would call dignified institutions like churches and CSOs.
Okay.
You see. So as a result, the country is no longer in one unity, but more a composition of regional blocks with vested political and economic interest, which sometimes may get in the way of being objective.
Okay.
Because on one hand, we have the private media, which sees more of an empty glass than a full one, and will never appreciate any positive from the government and will continue saying how bad the government is.
Okay.
And then on the other hand, we have got the public media, which sees a half full glass, and in the process sometimes negates its duty of informing and educating the public and will only sing accolades about the government. So as a result, what we have out there, it's a public that is underinformed and sometimes misinformed.
Okay.
And this has led now, the vacuum created by these two has been invaded by what has become citizen journalism, whereby anybody with a smartphone and a computer can post anything. As a result, people make bad decisions because of unprofessional of material which might be true, but has not been packaged professionally.
Okay. Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Lungu. Today we've been looking at the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, which is basically an instrument of self-governing or monitoring of various states within Africa. Zambia is one of them. So we're calling upon the public, the youths, everybody to take an active role because this is a very important year for Zambia as it is being reviewed. So we are looking forward to having mayors, councillors, MPs, and everybody else to work hand in hand with various civil society organizations as well as people to actually join in and make submissions for the Africa Peer Review. So this has been the Jctr Corner, which is brought to you by the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection. With me in the studio, I was joined by Mr. Joseph Lungu from Jctr. And to present to you the program, my name is Natasha Muhila. Until next time, it's bye-bye.